Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Broadway Jets YouTube channel. You'll know me from Twitter as NYJ Mike. I'm joined as always by the master of receipts, NYJ Matt. And Matt, two very important things have happened since our last podcast with Connor Hughes. Check it out on our channel. We're sponsored by Jets X Factor, Robbie Sabo. Shout out to the boys. Number one, the Jets played a preseason game on Saturday against the Commanders. And number two, today we're filming this on Monday, the 12th. Haason Reddick has officially requested his second trade of the offseason. Unprecedented stuff, Matt. Interesting.
Yeah. So the preseason game was fun. I think there's more positives than negatives that came out of the game. But, Mike, we got to start with the Reddick trade demand. So, Mike, you've been all active in our group chat. So we have
I've been fired
a friend
up all
group
day.
chat from home. We have like 3 different group chats that people talk in very often. And I, go for a 2-mile run after work, trying to get back in shape after drinking 5,000 beers at a wedding this weekend. And I get done with my run, and I have 220 messages from Mike and people arguing. So, Mike, give me your take and the quick summary of the Haason Reddick saga.
Right. So when this stuff happens, the conversation is normally, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. So my understanding of the situation is that the New York Jets traded for Haason Reddick. There was some. This is speculation. I assume they did some negotiating beforehand, and obviously did not agree to a deal, right? So then, it seems like what the Jets are saying is that they said if you show up and perform, we will offer you a big extension once the season starts. Which Haason Reddick said yes. His camp said yes. And that's the big difference here between what the Jets and the Eagles were going to do. Right? The reason that Haason Reddick requested a trade from the Eagles is because he didn't want to play in his current contract. So if he were to come to the Jets and play under the same contract, that makes no sense, right? There had to be something. Either the Jets were going to offer him some kind of raise now or a bigger extension, which is what seems like they're doing or what they were offering when the season starts, right? So the Jets are saying, hey, show up, play well, and we'll pay you. And Haason Reddick's camp said yes. That was what was always reported. Now, Haason Reddick held out, which we knew, and is requesting a trade. That is him going back on his word. And the reason why the Jets, and the reason why the Jets I don't think are in the wrong here, because in that scenario, that seems naive. This guy's going to make a handshake deal and come in and play his ass off, and everything's going to be, jolly-go-lucky. That was the plan, right? So he comes in and plays. Now the Jets, because that's not happening, he's holding out and requesting a trade. The Jets can tell him they have the leverage to say, fuck you, hold out. We're just going to keep fining you. If they lose him in free agency eventually, you're going to get a compensatory pick. And what I'm reading now is that his contract, if he holds it the whole season, will just a toll until next season. The Jets will have his rights anyway. So it doesn't seem like Haason Reddick has much leverage here. It seems like the Jets tried to get an all-pro player on a cheaper deal, and in the scenario that he doesn't comply, they have the control of the situation. So I think actually Joe Douglas is doing a pretty good job with this. There's obviously the Bryce Huff and JFM stuff that factors into it. It's a lot to unpack, but that's my understanding of the situation.
Yeah, and I think he was going to play under $14.5 million this year. I could see the Jets saying, "Hey, look, we'll give you $21 million per year, hypothetically. But if you come in, you show good faith, you're at every practice, everything, that extension can maybe be $22.5, $23 million." And the point that bothers me about what the Jets did is they did offer a contract extension at point of trade, and he declined it. You still traded for him anyway. Fine. You're improving your roster. You have a top 100 player in the NFL. I get being aggressive and trading a third-round pick 2 years
but they got a verbal okay from his team.
So that's what Connor Hughes is reporting. Right. Connor's reporting that as fact.
Yes.
And it appears like the Joe Douglas camp, who's going through Jordan Schultz, is saying the Haason Reddick camp that is going through Jordan Schultz is saying that agreement was not in place. and the intent that he would get an extension would occur before mandatory minicamp. He was too far apart. He doesn't show up. So if you're giving me a blame pie, Mike, I'm going 70-30. 70% blame on Haason Reddick, 30% blame. And the reason 30% of the Jets is it kind of goes back to that what could have been with Huff, what could have been with JFM. And do you use that allocation that were going to give, Haason Reddick to Huff, to maybe another safety? Like, you could have moved some stuff around. Mike, the big problem I have is that if you trade for a disgruntled employee, he could still be disgruntled. Like that can happen. So you know what you're getting into, and there's no pinky promises. I think it was Nova on Twitter said, like, there's no pinky promises in the NFL.
Well, that's
You
why
have to
Reddick
get
is
it in writing.
That's why I think Reddick is wrong, because he did pinky promise and he's now going back on it. The Jet story has never changed. The Jet story has never changed. This was reported the entire time.
But we know how professional athletes are, and if you get traded in March, and yeah, he came into the building, he did his interview, he's been tweeting about like can't wait to join the team.
Yeah.
But like if he's expecting, I'm gonna get 22, 23, and they stick at 20 and 21, and he's like, why am I gonna come here and I want $2 more million per year? I'm gonna show up and potentially get hurt and get nothing in minicamp, get nothing in OTAs, and then he draws a line in the sand, and then both teams won't move. And the reason why this is more problematic for not just now. Like, yeah, you had a great tweet. You could all look at this in 9 months from now. I mean, sacking Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. But like the vibes are thrown off. Like the vibes are thrown off, which I just don't like it.
The vibes are off. Well, I want to go back to one thing too. All the Bryce Huff JFM stuff. JFM did happen after, or I don't know if that was before the Reddick deal or not, but it was later. It was past their initial free agency, so that is more. What's the word? Relevant. The Bryce Huff thing, the Jets, I think the situation is with that, the Jets had a lot of holes to fill. They filled all their holes probably more efficiently than they thought they were going to, with like a nice deal with Tyron Smith.
Yep.
Like with all these kind of moves. And then you had some money left over. You're like, oh, let's go get Haason Reddick. I think
Very
if Bryce
fair.
Huff, right. So that is one thing. Well, we're not going to know what actually goes down, but and I understand where Haason Reddick is coming from. It doesn't make him a bad person. I just think that it seems like his camp. It seemed like the Jets' story has been consistent the whole time. We're not Joe Douglas apologists. I'm not always defending the team. I thought Joe Douglas not signing a veteran quarterback last year after Rodgers went down is a literal fireable offense. Complete malpractice. I am not afraid to call it malpractice. I don't think this one is malpractice. I think the Jets had the plan in mind that if Reddick was going to not stay true to his word, which he's not, then they'll just say what they did immediately after Reddick's can come out and requested a trade today and say, literally go fuck yourself. We're going to fine you $50,000 every single day. I don't care. We have the rights. If he wants to come back in week 9 like a schmuck and play a little bit, not play whatever, bust his ass. At the end of the season, the Jets will get a compensation pick when he signs elsewhere anyway. I get it.
I think Douglas handled it. Yeah, I think they handled it well after the fact. I put out the statement. I don't think they needed to put out the statement, but they did. Perfectly fine.
Because then you got the whole, everyone's going to be speculating where he's going to go, and then it's just slander fest, the whole thing. Nip in the butt immediately, 1 second after, bang.
Yeah, and the only thing, and again, Connor Hughes fan, right? He's on our show. I like Connor a lot. And I think he's being told this information and reporting it. But also, like, there is a path that Samini, Kaz, Rosenblatt, Dennis, they don't have the same story thread that this is how it went from point A to point B. So I think Connor's very close with a lot of people in the Jets organization. They're going to tell him what they need to save face a bit. And from a Woody Johnson perspective, like, this isn't fun. Like, this is not fun at all to have your organization be in the news again for something not super great. So the best case scenario is that Woody Johnson calls his agent, who, by the way, the agent is the same as Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk, and a few other disgruntled wide receivers. Bring him in to New York City, go to where Mike lives, go to a beautiful restaurant in Wall Street, say, hey, look, we'll give you $22.5 million. We'll give you 3 years. We'll give you most of the money up in the front 2 years. Go crazy next 2 years. Then we'll let you go to another team in year 3, make a lot more money, and let's win a Super Bowl. And maybe we get there within the next 10 days. I'm really hopeful they can.
I hope so too, Matt. It goes back to something else that Connor Hughes said on our show on the last episode. If you want to check it out, it's somewhere on your screen this way, that way. Um, Connor said that Woody Johnson is not, he wants to see something from this current team before he continues to write blank checks, which was that was the direct quote. It's an interesting quote, and it does stay consistent with what the Jets have been saying this whole time, which is show up, perform, and then we'll pay you, which again is an interesting thing to say to a 30-year-old veteran who has 50 sacks in the last 3 seasons. So, but character wise, it kind of makes sense where, and I was talking to some Eagles fans too, and they're like, before all this happens, they're like, he's going to hold out on you. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. He's going to request 2 trades one offseason. It doesn't happen. And then he did. So, you kind of protect yourself in that situation where the Jets are like, you're going to have to come in here and show us something, at least come in and work out, do some workouts, do anything before we're going to pay you $80 million in an extension, which is what it is. I just can't get past the fact that unless things were misreported, Haason Reddicks camp agreed to something and are just not doing it. So that's why I think the Jets are in the right. But to your point, Connor Hughes, where is his information coming from? The people
Again,
who
he's
are
not making it
negotiating
up.
against Haason Reddick. No, I know. Like I get it.
They're
Like
telling him this, and I think he believes it. And I just haven't seen that side of it reported elsewhere. And the Jets have some younger edge guys that they like, not even counting Will McDonald or Jermaine Johnson. Like they like Watts, they like guys they brought in at camp like McGregor. So maybe they feel like, oh, we're gonna get young guys more reps in the preseason now. They'll get more reps with the ones, but geez, you can't take a top 90 player in the NFL off your roster and in a position that in football is maybe the third, fourth most important, and lose that. Like it's not a good feeling to go into a year when you don't have that guy there. Now Jermaine can
it's
pop off,
definitely a big deal.
McDonald can step up.
Yeah.
You don't. I just don't envision it not working out where he doesn't play week one. Like I think he'll play week one.
I still do too. It's obnoxious that this is happening, but at least it's not a current Jet, like a already Jet
Yeah.
having this issue with the locker room. He's outside the locker room. The players probably aren't even thinking about it. Um, and it'll feel good once he's here. It just will. But man,
It'll be good. We'll be back very
just
soon. We have a lot of good videos coming. I'm ready to go. We have to rip one more this week before I'm away for a couple days. But thank
where
you
you
for
go.
listening. Subscribe, comment,
They're gonna.
like. Any parting words, Mike?
I don't know. It'll be fine. I'm still honestly not that worried. The Jets are still an all-star team. You need this guy, though. It's a big piece of your roster. Not diminishing that. I still think that the Jets actually handled this better than people are saying.
What's your blame pie before we wrap up? I said 70-30.
85-15.
Fair?
You got to get maybe more specific contract details beforehand, but I actually believe the Jets. I don't know why it's just a gut feeling. It just feels so consistent. They said all along, this is what we're going to do. Reddick seemed to say okay, even in his press conference, which is a little bit odd also. But, I think he'll be fine. He'll be here week one,
All right. Have a good night, buddy.
too.